We'll get back to continuing the presentation. We'll go back, so we'll intersperse this. And if I can switch on this microphone, which I should remember to do periodically. Our goal is to find a way to create more than all the individual pieces that came in here. So I'm hoping that you'll bounce ideas around each other and share those with us. Just a few words regarding DCMME, and Herb knows a lot about this because he was involved in nurturing its growth from the early days. So DCMME was the Center for the Management of Manufacturing Enterprises, was started here at Krannert in 1988. It became DCMME in 1998 when Dick Dalk from American Axle provided some funding to the school. Our focus, and I want to be very clear regarding our focus, Jerry mentioned two things. He sort of slipped in a little detail regarding the role of center directors and people who work at the center, and that is to be a net zero cost impact to the school. Okay, that's very important for the role of the center. So when we raise funds, we use it to support all our activities, support students, scholarships, etc. So our goal is to create educational and research opportunities, and in some ways, what we like to do is to offer all of you in industry an opportunity to get things done which result in an educational experience for students. So in some sense, if you boil it down to a cost proposition, basically given that the students are learning, you're not covering full cost, okay? But because they're students who are learning, you've got to be a little more relaxed regarding the fact that you're not going to get a certain level of performance in a short period of time. You will get the quality, which is guaranteed, but you've got to understand that there's a learning process involved. And what we do is to sit in between and see to it that this is not an onerous task. We try to see to it that things get streamlined, we don't waste your time, we find a way to sort of make it manageable and get projects accomplished. And we'll show you examples of several such projects that have been completed. And one of the things to note is that in addition to being managing director of the center, Mary has a Six Sigma black belt, which means that we have a process for projects and we deliver on time, and then we bulldog the budget fairly carefully. We do two things. From an educational perspective, we shepherd 2 certificates within. They can finish a set of courses and other things to get 2 certificates. One certificate is manufacturing and technology management, and other. It's always good to draw a graph which is costs, okay? So the y-axis here is student interest. Despite what you hear, within universities, life is pretty Darwinian, okay? If students are not interested, a bit of a lag, but you're shut down. So it's always good to have a certificate program that students continue to be interested in. So we've been interested, in fact, last May, I think we handed out about 120 certificates between the 2 options, which just means that at least you're interested in operations and supply chain management, etc. So those of you in industry, if you're looking for students to be interns, students to hire, consider us. You know, you'll have your pick. You will have your pick of very good students, and you'll see many of them today. So this is just curve going in a different direction. Then you know what the implications are. I want to talk about a few projects in brief. You're going to hear a lot more from the people who actually were involved and the results. And so Jeb and Laura talked a little bit about one of the projects that we've been working with them. I'm just going to give you a broad overview, and I'm going to let them provide a lot of the details. So this was a project which was sponsored by Gicada, by Duke Energy, and the Walmart Foundation. Okay, it's really important as a center director to acknowledge that we may have great ideas, but till industries and entities in industry come through with providing funding, we can't support the students. Okay, we'd love students to do it for the cause, but you know how that conversation goes. So we use that. So this was important. What's equally important is that people give of their time. Because if all we do is get a check and say, oh, deliver this result, it can't happen until you have people who are in that context help you with details. So Don and Jeb and all of the people in the office in Kokomo played them. So what were we focused on? I'll just give you just a few brief words and have them talk a bit more in detail. This was a project focused on taking companies and their existing capabilities, understanding and recording the capabilities of all the firms, but as new opportunities arise for the region. So it's really about showcasing a region and its capabilities. so that economic development officials could interject and assist. So that was what the project was about. And part of what we wanted to do was to convert it into something concrete, convert it into a tool that allows fairly detailed data. So every company was recorded based on at the level, in some cases, of specific machines, machining tolerances, certifications, employee skills, etc. So that when new opportunities arose, be it windmills, be it biotech firms or whatever, you could reconstitute it, you could collect a bunch of firms and say, hey, we can compete, and here are the people who can help us compete. So the idea was to show capabilities. Now, what do our students learn when they do this? One of the things that students learn is for every company, all of this data had to be collected, recorded, and incorporated. And you learn a lot when you start seeing different companies and the mix of capabilities they have today. Students also get an idea of what kinds, how do new opportunities begin? So when they're shown, here's what a request for quotation starts as. Here's what a request for proposal looks like. And here's how you go about competing. And here's how intense the competition is. That's the kind of information we'd like our students to think about. Difficult to teach is how intense competition is. Okay? Everybody thinks you've set up a system easy. They don't realize that every time you rest easy, there's somebody ready to challenge you. Okay? If you're ahead, there are a lot of arrows that can potentially hit your back. And that's one of the things we want students to sort of understand. Again, this was a project that was completed, I think, on time and on budget. And we're actually gets incorporated, and we have Jeb, Laura, and Don here to talk about the project. A second opportunity, and Mary led this project with two of our students, Jenny and Manminder. And this is a project where we worked with an entity here in the region, Greenbush Industry. And this is part, from a project perspective, this is part of our center trying to fit entities in the community that are nonprofit entities. So Greenbush Industries is in the business of creating opportunities for adults with developmental disabilities, trying to find a way to keep them, to create opportunities for them to be gainfully employed and to play a role. So one of the things that they did was they focused on e-waste recycling. Those of you who are keeping track, one is exchanging their cell phones and adding new equipment and buying new iPods, etc., and changing computers, is that something has to happen to that used computer. And more often than not, depending on how that used computer is recycled, has a big impact on the environment. So what is happening, as if you're keeping track, is that various states are trying to showcase, in fact, they're falling over each other, trying to claim that they're greener. But all of regulation creates costs because somebody now has to figure out a way to recycle it. And they did a great study, which is a starting point, and they were recognized with an innovation award. I think these are the kinds of things you should expect to see in conversations with our students. And this is just another example of an interesting project. A third thing I'd like to talk a little bit about is one of the things we believe, and I think we're trying to communicate the idea that when one thinks about operations and global supply chain management, if there's one thing I'd like to summarize it was an interest in detail, an interest in execution. And the only way we can get students to understand what it means, what global competition is like, and what it means to be involved in a global supply chain is to put students on a plane, send them somewhere else, and have them involved in completing a project. Luckily for us, we have an alumnus, Venu Srinivasan, who's chairman of a company in India called TVS Motors. It's a $2 billion corporation. And one of the things he said is, as long as the students arrive in Bangalore, for 3 weeks, I'll cover all costs. He has his senior managers create projects and mentor students, whereby students get an opportunity to really understand what it means to be in Bangalore for 3 weeks and understand manufacturing, distribution, and managing suppliers. But one of the things about this company is that 4 of their divisions have won the Deming Prize, and the company is the only non-Japanese companies to have won the Japan Prize for quality. So when our students go there, they see an excellent manufacturing system in operation. And if you ask Venu, he said, everything I've learned at Purdue, we're implementing. System to see. There are several projects, and in fact, if you see some of the faces, you'll see some of the faces here in the audience. These were students who did projects. I mean, Scooty is a two-wheeler. There's some marketing. You see dealers, you see information systems and logistics, electric vehicles, etc. This is competition. There are many people all over the world competing. And if you look at the topics and you look at the level of quality, some of them are graduates of Purdue, just happen to be working in different parts of the world. Okay? We really think that this adds to the experience of students. I mean, we really want students to understand that everything isn't set up in a simple fashion. There are infrastructure issues. A to B is 5 miles, could take you half an hour. All of these are part of the planning. But what we do want to see happen is students have this experience and say, next time they go to work for a company and they say, well, you know, you just joined us 2 months from now, well, you're off to some other location. They say, okay, fine, I'll take it. Rather than worry about it and say, oh, what am I going to do? Am I going to survive? What am I going to eat? Well, people will survive. And I think that's it's about year 4 now. Examples of such projects that are delivered. One of the things that's interesting is that because the chairman of the company is the person funding it, the last thing the students do is no other managers in there. He gets them in, so tell me what you really learned about my company. Tells me what's going on. So the unfair, and then they won't hold back. And that gives me a better read of my company, that if you're a chairman, all you hear is good news, right? Till it gets really bad, you don't hear about it. So he said, well, I'll get the students from Purdue to come in and just shake things up a bit. And I want to hear what's going on. So that's, Venu started this, and one of the things we're trying to do is to expand this idea. So once we've stabilized the process of creating projects, getting them executed, you know, we'd like this to be in many other places. We'd like to create opportunities in Mexico, in China, in Brazil, etc. Because what we do want to be able to claim is when you hire a student from Krannert, you've hired a student who has gone through courses, but also gone somewhere else and executed a project. And one of the things, tourism, because just to give you an idea, and I think you can talk to many of the students who went on the trip, they take a flight over, typically it's Sunday night, they reach at about 5 a.m. Monday morning, and at 8 a.m. they're on a bus to the factory. So, you know, yes, they do tourism for a couple of days. Yes, you'll see an elephant and a monkey and the Taj Mahal, but that's on the Sunday that they're free. The rest of the time, there's stuff going on, there's business to be transacted. And one of the things that's sort of interesting is today, if you look at where growth is happening and where opportunities remain for innovation, there are opportunities to be leveraged. And what we do want to suggest is, if you're apprehensive about, you know, what am I going to do with respect to my expat labor costs, we say use a student as a starting point. To do an initial market study, some initial data gathering, and by the way, there may be another student here who is from that town. Put them in a team, and you might get an initial study done for not much cost. And in the process, you might be helping education. So we'd like that to be explored. I mean, for us, there's an upside to that, because to the extent that it gives you a new market and it gives you a new product, and down the line, when you become successful, if you remember Purdue, then there's a win-win in all of this. So just a quick little example. One of the things that, now Alex introduced himself, he's also the president of the Ops Club, and one of the things that the Student Operations Club does is, they take students on plant tours. And many of you who host plant tours, and many of the rest of you, if you'd like to give us some contact, we'd love for more of this to happen. There's the Subaru plant that we go into. John Deere has hosted us last year. Oshkosh, all of these companies, we enjoy our students going there. Remember, they're students. They're starting off. They're early in their careers. They've probably experienced a company or two, and the only way they'll learn is to go out and kick the tires. So this is part of the process of getting sort of a reality check of what operations is about. We welcome industry speakers, many of you who have a lot of experience and who are willing to give back just a day or so. We're not going to tax your time. We really appreciate your time. This is the way. I mean, this is, at the end of the day, this is a very human process of understanding, what's going to happen to their lives in terms of realizing, everything they want to do. and how fulfilling it can be. So that's the conversation that we want to see happen. And so we welcome all of you. Just drop us a note, send Mary an email, or send me an email, and we'll try to get things to happen. We also do a whole bunch of things in the spring. We have a case competition, which is open to all the schools around the world. In fact, typically we've had about 30 to 35 schools who participate in round one. We boil it down to round two, 6 schools, and we have a case competition in the spring. Notice that this is a university, so spring comes in February, because we think spring is a concept. So, so that's case competitions. We have newsletters, and again, this is where, as I mentioned, we'd like to hear from you. Currently, we have a newsletter, which is in some sense, a few things we write, summarizing interviews with managers that month, but we'd like it to be more than that, and we'd like to leverage technology. We'd like it to be more frequent. Whatever it is that you think might be as you come up with. In fact, if you'd be willing to write a little bit, that's fine. This might get a process going, and none of this needs to be very long. You could just have a few sentences, a few ideas. We're willing to try a variety of things, whether it's blogs or Twitters or whatever. We'll try anything as long as we get participation, as long as you say, okay, that's interesting. Here are a few things that are interesting. So the Operations Club is the organization run by our master's students, our MBA students, and OSCO, which is our undergraduate organizations. And these are the two groups that we nurture at the center.